I've been hearing about Citizens of Soil for such a long time, but it wasn't until recently when I spoke to Sarah and Michael, the founders of Citizens of Soil, that I really understood the beauty behind this model, this brand, this supply chain, this love, this craft. So for me, olive oil had become such a commoditized category over the years. There's, yes, at the very, very top end of olive oil, there is, incredibly premium, incredibly expensive brands, but probably only in specialist shops or online specialist stores. But really, there was nothing that I could find out there that made me fall in love with the craft, the selection, the farmers, the whole feeling of belonging until I came across Citizens of Soil. So what Michael and Sarah have done with this business is they've really seen a much bigger opportunity than just olive oil and not just premiumizing it, but bringing the transparency, the craft, regenerative farming, and fairer value back into the system. So if you want to hear about how to create a community around your brand, if you want to understand how you reinvigorate a category by seeing it in a totally different way, then listen to this episode. I think you'll really enjoy hearing Sarah and Michael speak. Sarah and Michael of Citizens of Soil, welcome to Brand Growth Heroes.
Thank you so much, Fiona. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
It's so good to have you on. Do you know that my last guest, who I just recorded with, said to tell you, and this is a lovely segue between the two recording sessions, that Citizens of Soil is the most exciting challenger brand in food and beverage right now.
Who said that?
I would love to know who you
Very
interviewed.
lovely thing.
I'll tell you at the end of the show, but somebody who is a
Okay.
very important chair, NED, senior food and beverage and bigger. Yeah, growth chair, I would say. So that's a really nice thing to hear, isn't it?
Delighted to hear
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please
It's great
thank them
to
on our
be
behalf.
I will. Let's tell everybody who's listening, Citizens of Soil, who wants to start, tell us what it is, how it started, and where you are and where you're going, and let's dive in.
I feel like I always kick off the story, so I might let Michael kick off at least how we got here, because the background really starts with him.
Yeah, so I met a woman, Maria, on a ferry between Santorini and Crete. It was a 4 a.m. ferry. I was 23, didn't know where I was going, just trying to get to Crete to island hop through Greece. And this woman said, what are your plans in Crete? And I said, I don't have any plans. I'm just here for 12 hours before I get another flight out. And she said, right, you come to my house, you're staying with me, we're going to have lunch together, I'll take a tour of the city, and I will not take no for an answer.
That's so lovely.
And this has become very emblematic of the overall Cretan hospitality, that they historically believe that anybody who could come to that island may be a god or the god. And so treat everyone, just in case, like they are a higher being who has made it their way to our island of Crete. Fast forward, we become such fast friends. I'm now the godfather of her son, which in Greek customs is about as big as it gets.
Wow.
You are the second family. They couldn't find anyone who would allow me to be involved, not being exactly Greek Orthodox. So naturally, I converted to Greek Orthodox.
You did not.
I said, whatever it takes. You are my family. So whatever it takes to become even more part of your family.
Did that take loads of study and work, or was it just of signing a paper?
7 workshops in London with a priest here, actually, which they cut down to 3 because I'd been baptized originally. So they said, you can do the fast course.
Okay, wow. That's commitment.
When I say Maria is like family, I mean, really, Maria is genuinely family.
Started with these close family friends. They were small batch producers of olive oil, wine, had fruits, this beautiful grove and plantation. And for years, Michael and I worked in food and drink, and Michael worked in the craft spirit space. So we were bringing back this olive oil and giving it to chefs and bartenders, and everyone had all this incredible feedback, and they were like, God, it's so good. We're like, yeah, why is it so good? Why does it taste better than any other olive oil we can find on shelf here? And this went on for years, and to the point that Michael and I were finally like, we're just going to start bringing over a batch from them. And we started to get into the logistics of can we just rent 10 of your trees? And then we having no idea really how it worked, except for over the years, we started getting more familiar with harvest. And this actually went on for a long time, probably a decade. But I then was working in sustainability for a company called provenance.org. And while I was at Provenance, we were doing deep dives into supply chains of tea, coffee, chocolate. And I was seeing all these commodity supply chains and how what we call the first mile, the people who do all the work at the beginning, the farmers, the producers, the smallholders, were really cut out of any profit and were squeezed because they were held to a set market price. And I'm watching this every day in my job and with all these consultants explaining how terrible these supply chains are. And I'm like, this is what's happening in olive oil. Like they're forced to accept this commodity price, never mind that they are harvesting earlier in the season, farming organically, have a regenerative grove, doing all of these steps at the mill to ensure the quality is really high. At the end of the day, they're getting paid the same thing as that farmer behind them who's brought the grubbiest olives you've ever seen that smell terrible. And they're still going through the mill and they're both getting the same price. And then these oils are being blended and blended, they're blended at this mill, they get passed, blended. We can get into the depths of the commodity system. But I was like, this isn't fair. And what if we pay y'all more so you can make some sort of livelihood, so you can reinvest in the land, and we'll sell this oil in London for you. That was as simple at the beginning as we were like, we're going to sell this at a farmer's market in London for you and pay you more so you can reinvest in the land. And also, while I was working in sustainability, I started getting really interested in soil regeneration and soil health. And I felt like soil health was unlocking so many of the problems in our food system from a nutrition perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective. And the droughts, the fires, the floods, all of these things felt like they could be resolved with that. And, all these carbon projects we were doing. And I was like, if farmers just did this in the land, we could prevent all these problems. So that kind of coupled together in this moment of like, let's reward the farmers for doing this. But however, that was the first instance. And as soon as we kind of set to do the idea, just because we wanted to pay them a more fair share and reinvest in the land, we started to look around the category, and we would buy like every bottle on shelf we could buy at the supermarket and buy, 10, 15 bottles in Greece at the airport when we'd come through. And we realized that there was just a lot of boredom in the category. These entrenched global brands who had been sitting on the shelf, not doing anything exciting, not disclosing the information that we were looking for in oils. Like, when was this harvested? What are the varieties here? I wonder what quality on the acidity side this is. And we're not finding out any of that information on shelf. And so Michael, with his background in craft spirits, he kind of led the craft spirits movement in the UK, more than a decade ago, was like, this feels like an opportunity. And us seeing this across chocolate and coffee, other categories that had this artisan, fair, specialty movement, we thought, this is an opportunity, so let's just go for it.
Amazing. And Michael, talk to us a little bit about how your background then, what had you done before that you were able to transplant across into the olive oil category?
Yeah, sure. So I saw the growth of craft spirits in the US. In the US from 2005 to 2010, they went from about 75 distilleries to almost 1,500. Right. And I could see that same trend was going to happen here. We actually follow food and drink trends about 5 years later, as I'm sure you're well aware. And I thought at the time we had about half a dozen craft distilleries, mostly vodka or gin, here in the UK. And by 2015, we're at close to 800. So huge growth over a short period of time. And we were heavily involved in introducing a lot of the leading craft spirits brands into the UK market.
When you say we, who's we?
I set up a business called Maverick Drinks. So I was the founder of a company called Maverick Drinks, importing spirits from the US, from Finland, from France, pretty much all over.
Okay.
But dedicated to leading that kind of craft spirits movement here in the UK. We also came across hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different brands from all over the world. And I could see the things that would work well and land with consumers here and the things that didn't work so well. And when you looked at the olive oil category, they were all very similar styles of brands. A little bit of gold foiling, an olive tree, some kind of authentic cues, but nothing that spoke to a modern consumer. There were no brands you'd be excited about in olive oil. And so it was important to us that we created something that really resonated, but we drew a lot from the drinks world. We started off by putting it in a wine bottle. It's in a Burgundy wine bottle.
Yeah, I love that.
Largely because people understand paying a little bit more in wine, you get significantly better value.
Yeah.
They also understand that a wine from France will taste different than a wine from Italy, or a wine from Spain will taste different from a wine from England.
So you're borrowing the packaging cues of another category in order to signal the choice heuristics in terms of what's available.
100%. If we can create a category that has already done a pretty good job of premiumizing, although there's a lot of miscommunication in wine too, and people don't really understand differences between different varieties, but at least it's the best proxy we have for the type of olive will have a difference in flavor. The country it comes from, the terroir, that concept of terroir, well established in wine, is just as prominent in olive oil as well. And putting it in a wine bottle already could signal a kind of premium positioning in the olive oil category.
I'm thrilled to introduce Brand Growth Hero's newest partner, Jolson. Jolson is a leading B Corp certified commercial law firm that specialises in guiding the founders of scaling CPG brands. With long-term relationships with clients like Little Moons, Trip, Eat Natural, Bear, Graze and Pulson, Jolson is also famous for advising the Innocent founders in their landmark sale to Coca-Cola. And believe it or not, they still work with the Innocent founders at Jam Jar Investments today. I'm especially impressed by how Jolson sets founders up for long-term success and by their commitment to championing female founders. Recently, I asked one of Jolson's managing partners, Paul Chappie, a tough but crucial question. Should co-founders discuss, right from the start, what happens if one of them wants to leave the business?
Absolutely. I mean, with any joint venture, that's what a sort of co-founder relationship is. You've got to be very clear from the outset as to what each party is bringing to that business. Look at the skill sets, look at the time commitment. I often see founders coming where, one founder might have a full-time job. They're still getting the same amount of equity. And you can see immediately that there's an imbalance in that relationship that they either haven't looked at or are ignoring. And eventually that will come home to roost. So I think the key thing is to look at, what are we bringing? What is that future going to bring? What are the things that, if I have to go and look after kids or have to emigrate somewhere, what's going to happen to this business? What happens to my equity? All those questions need to be thought through, discussed, and contractually you can then just draft those provisions into that contract and set that relationship on a firm footing.
Huge thanks to Brand Growth Heroes podcast sponsors, Jolson. Now let's get back to the show. You decided to go with this business and how has it progressed? And what were the different phases of growth?
Well, I mean, that first year was just about bringing over our friend's oil and selling it. But this was pre-pandemic when we made that decision. And then the pandemic happened. So instead of selling, easily at a farmer's market, it kind of turned in quite quickly to a D2C opportunity. And we really just started off with our family friends. That was just the intention. However, as someone who I've studied wine and had worked in food and drink, I knew that there must be, a lot I didn't know about olive oil. And I don't like to go into things not having a full understanding of the category. So I started looking at courses and meeting like international olive oil judges and doing, even online, because again, this was the depths of the pandemic, doing workshops with them, masterclasses. They'd send us samples from Italy and we would try them and walk through them so I could understand like the taste and defects, which also exist in olive oil. And then I found like a sommelier course through a school. There's a couple schools, mainly in the Mediterranean, that do these olive oil like certifications for sommeliers. So you can learn. Really, for me, I was wanting to know not the pairings and things like that, which are quite fun. It was like, am I buying a good oil, even if I'm buying it for my close family friends? And one thing I see a lot of olive oil businesses get tripped up on is just because your close family friends or even you are making it does not mean it is without defects and problems. And so that kind of set us on our next phase, which was, okay, well, this oil is amazing. We're really happy with this. We actually sold out of that batch already. Now we need to find another oil. And I kind of want to find something really rare, really interesting, and find like some outstanding producers. And so we started, as soon as we could travel, dropping into new regions, finding who's winning the most awards, but who's like craft, sustainable. Is there a woman in this region I can talk to, which is also a hard thing to find, and learning from them, doing a harvest with them, doing a production day, just going to their mill, asking them questions and learning as much as possible. And that started to lead us on this course of like, okay, there are these like-minded producers making outstanding quality, but they're not, again, being paid for that. And how can we start to represent them in different regions and pull together a range for people like us who, again, to borrow from the wine space, are really curious about like terroir and different artisan food experiences. And can we start to showcase these different producers? And that kind of became the start of the range.
And then we secured some early listings by reaching out to all of my drinks buyer contacts.
How brilliant is that?
Every drinks buyer I knew that I'd worked with for years and said, you clearly like nice things. Do you know someone in a separate buying position who might also like nice things? And so that got us listing with Selfridges, with Fortnum's, and then led to John Vine, who's the spirits buyer at Waitrose, introducing us to the olive oil buyer.
Well, John also used to be the olive oil buyer, so he knew
and
he knew it was good.
Previously was an olive oil buyer, so he knew what we were doing was of quality, but he also knew we wouldn't do anything that wasn't. He made a very flattering introduction, and that kind of set us on the path to lining up our first grocery listing in 2023. And I remember sitting down with Sarah in our kitchen and saying, we're at a bit of a crossroads here. We're about to get the next level bigger. And if we do so, we probably need to raise money to really support this. So, but that comes with sacrifice. You know, we then have shareholders, we have investors. We are responsible to be custodians of their funding and grow this business. So we can either keep it as a lifestyle business, supporting the people we know and grow it very slowly, but also means that the impact on the farmers and the amount we're able to pay them more is itself limited. It's going to be slow. Or we can raise money, we can go faster, we can get into Waitrose, we can work with more farmers, and we can pay more farmers what they're worth, but we're taking on investment. But it's your call, Sarah. So this is up to you. You get to decide. This is really your idea. So which do you want to do? And she said, I want to do the one that helps more farmers. I was like, great. Then that becomes the course we're going down now.
And at this point, we were both still working full-time. I think I had dialed down and I was doing like some consultancy as well as a couple days a week. But if you don't have the funds, if you don't have the safety net, if you don't have savings to actually start a business, you are funding that from your day job. And so at this point, that was kind of what held us back from investment, because we were trying to make that decision. Was I going to fully quit my job and dive into this, or were we going to keep it kind of as like a side hustle?
And how did that feel? I mean, did you get to a point where you knew you felt safe enough to dive out of your job, or did that point never come? You just had to do it?
No, I had to do it.
Okay, that must have been scary.
I knew we were going to fundraise, and so that gave me, I remember telling one of my consultancy jobs, I was freelancing for an agency, and I said, I'm going to have to wrap this up because I actually am about to fundraise, and I don't think my investors will take kindly to me working on another project whenever they've just invested in me to work full-time and grow this. And actually, it's funny because that agency ended up being one of our early angels. He was like, great, and I'll be one of them, and I support this, and came in as one of our first angels. But it is terrifying because also, you know, Michael and I are, you know, immigrants to this country. We don't have any family here. We don't have any fallback plan. We don't have money that we can borrow from family either. So we were in this position that's like, fortunately, Michael we kind of made the decision. The olive oil was me kind of leading it from the start. So we had his business, but that's still a one-income household in London is not easy.
Jump forward to today. Where is the business today in terms of size, team, split by channel? Where's the growth coming from? What's in the pipeline, innovation? My understanding was that it's mainly female producers that you focus on. Is that right?
Yeah, all of our groves are at least 50% female-led and female-owned. So we have a couple incredible, just dynamic women who do everything, and very small artisan producers who literally farm, mill, do it all. And then the rest of them are kind of a makeup of, owning the land. They're the miller. But that's a part of the criteria, the benchmark when we start working with farmers.
It's incredible. Okay, so give us the overview then of the business today.
The business has had a pretty phenomenal couple of years. So we kind of grew from 250K in 2023 to a little over $1 million in 2024 to almost $3 million in 2025.
It's incredible.
This year we could do, we're aiming for over 5 million this year. It's definitely going to be last year 142% year-on-year growth. About 70% of that is still D2C, despite the fact that end of December, we were the fastest growing branded olive oil in all of grocery. Slight caveat being brands over 100K in sales. We didn't get expanded distribution. We just worked hard at working the distribution we had. The distribution actually only increased at the end of November in 2025. So we're really talking about 11 months of strong growth in the stores that we were in, coupled with a big increase in our olive oil club, which is now over 15,000 people who are getting olive oil delivered every month.
That's incredible. And so what's the subscription for that then monthly? What does it cost?
Yeah, so £15 a month, and you're getting a refill pouch delivered through your letterbox. We're the only letterbox subscription for olive oil in the UK. So I can easily say we're also the largest, but I would say I feel pretty confident saying we're the largest of any olive oil subscription in the UK.
And is it a different oil every month?
Yep,
Yeah,
you get a
that's part
different
of
oil.
the club. It's like 500 mil, so it's about this. It's the size of our bottle. We just launched these ceramics as well last year, so people can actually refill into this vessel that's made near one of our producers.
It's amazing how far we got without actually giving people something to put it in. We just kept sending them pouches every month without telling them what to do with it. But the ceramics have been absolutely transformative. More than half of people who subscribe to the Olive Oil Club and become members are also adding a ceramic bottle at the time purchase.
That's incredible. So talk to us then about who this person is. So your largest part of your business is D2C, right? What part of that is the subscription, or is that a new and growing part?
The subscription was actually there from the very beginning because I was coming out of the sustainability world and I used to work with a pretty luxury gin business. And I remember every time you take these bottles that were just so beautiful with their gold, and the cork and all that, and you just like throw them away. And we'd be at these events and just throwing out like hundreds of bottles. And I was like, this is wild. So I always knew, and from some of the projects we were doing in the beauty space at my business in sustainability as I was leaving, I was like, we just need to make a beautiful vessel that we can refill with as light a weight as possible carbon option. So the pouches that we did are these multi-layer. So it's not a monoplastic, it's a multi-layer that was 15 times less carbon than our glass. Just that, not even the tertiary, like the extra packaging you have to do, which you have to do for glass. These things, like, they rarely, they never bust. They're so reliable. And it gave us this opportunity, to also be letterbox, which was to help cut down on like the shipping in general. And those are pouches that we, from the very beginning, have also taken back. So you can send them back to us for free. We have a free post. We take them back so we can completely break down that packaging and to close the loop. That has been like a whole part of the process that I actually wanted from the very beginning. So our first product was our Greek bottle and the refill pouch to go with it. And then we wanted people to be able to keep subscribing. However, that first year or two was actually just the same oil. You just got the same oil every month or every 2 months sent to you. And we slowly got it letterboxable. It was a really hard thing to do at the beginning. I think we thought our first pouches would be letterboxable, and it took us probably a year or more to get there.
So was it a number of things that all came together at once between 2024 and 2025 to make that jump to from the 1.5 to 3 million? Or was it one thing in particular? Like, what were the big levers?
I mean, there are a couple of things from the club side that really drastically changed our subscription. So we started calling it a club for starters. It used to be called subscribed refills. Subscribed refills is not very exciting, but joining an Olive Oil Club is much more exciting. And almost overnight, we saw a 10x increase in new members joining the club. Huge change. That, and coupled with what Sarah said about, we were previously just sending the same oil every month. Now you're getting a different oil every month. Pricing didn't change. In fact, if anything, we actually raised the price by £1.50.
Website didn't change.
Nope. Just the positioning of it
Advertising?
as a club. Nope. Didn't spend any more.
So you're spending the same amount, you're just calling it a club instead of a subscription refill. Isn't it incredible?
And we're talking about people in the context of them being members of a community rather than them being subscribers. We have drilled it into our team as well. If we see the word subscription or subscriber, we're like, they're members, not subscribers, And everybody in the team now knows it's like a dirty word. Put a pound in the swear jar if you say subscriber instead of member. It has genuinely changed how we treat the community, how we try and bring them closer to the producers as well, so that it lives to our mission, which is to turn a commodity into a community. And I think membership of that club is a really big part of that.
What a great
And it has
mission.
fundamentally changed the commercials of our subscription business.
That's wonderful. So which retailers are you in as well as the D2C? Just Ocado, Waitrose?
Waitrose, Ocado, Booths, Fortnum, Selfridges, and tons of independents.
I'm imagining that per 100 mils, the premium that the consumer is paying is significant, is it?
So in a retailer setting, our pouches start at 16 and our bottles start at 19. I would say even at 19, we're probably in the 80th percentile. There's probably still 20% of brands that are more expensive than us.
Okay.
Most of those brands don't have anywhere near the transparency or trust that we've been really imbuing into the brand.
No, the reason I ask this, just to point out for anyone listening, is more to show the value that you can add to a category by, rather than competing on price, competing on uniqueness, sustainability, something different, and assuming the best, that there will be shoppers who will pay for that, who will pay extra, rather than, it's way too much more than the average olive oil, no one will buy it. You guys have come out with something that your value proposition holds up. There are enough people that are willing to pay for it. So talk to us about those people, the people who are your members, but also the people in store. You know, what is different about them? Why are they choosing Citizens of Soil rather than, say, you know, another premium olive oil in store?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of clarity on the D2C side, which is why it's such a beautiful channel, because we can do annual surveys, we call them up, we have them come out to events, we do as many opportunities. You can just talk and engage with that audience. So in there, we have a few profiles. And actually, one of the insights that came out of it last year was this massive increase in people using it from a nutrition perspective, people really into it for the antioxidants, people kind of health hacking their way through life. And that insight of talking to these people, and even like, you know, going out for coffee with them, having them at events, having specific events and hearing their questions, what they wanted, asking them, how are you using this? Like, are you using it on, you know, across your cooking, or no, okay, you're just taking a shot and a spoonful in the morning. Okay, we need to kind of assess what we should give you. And so we just launched off the back of that our olive oil, the Health Club, which is really these high polyphenol extra virgin olive oils, which is really this next level in nutrition. So from the very beginning, every oil that we source, which is actually how we still have a lot of customers engaged on our regular olive oils, is because all of our extra virgin olive oils are what are considered high polyphenol by the EU health standard. This is over 250 milligrams per kilogram of total polyphenols. And in those polyphenols, there are some really powerful ones that are known for anti-inflammatory, that a lot of people, even if they have everything from autoimmune to actually just wanting longevity and wanting to work on their joints, or, you know, just wanting a better overall health, these people are getting into high polyphenol extra virgin olive oils. So that's one thing that we delivered, is one this year for our Health Club that is 3 times. Basically, you can become a member to get every month or every other month an oil that is more than 3 times what is classified as a high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil, and specifically sourced with a nutritional breakdown, so you can look at some of those specific antioxidants if you're the sort of person that is using olive oil for that. And that was an insight that came directly from this nutrition crew. And we do still have people that maybe haven't upgraded to the Health Club or moved into the Health Club space. I wouldn't say it's an upgrade, because the reality is it's a different sort of oil. It's a more intense, way more peppery, way more bitter, maybe not something you want to cook everything with. A lot of producers actually don't like to make those oils because they find them too intense in flavor.
Can you switch between the two? Because I can imagine if I set up a subscription, which I'm going to do after this, I would like 1 month to have the beautiful drizzly cooking oil. Well, there's probably 3 different types, because we always have at home, we will always have a crappy olive oil for cooking. And by crappy, I mean, you know, and then we will have a salad olive oil that we'll spend a bit more on, or drizzle olive oil. But now I would like to have every 3rd month to have my health oil, because I probably won't go through the whole bottle in a month. Is that possible, or is that just too complex?
Yeah, it's quite flexible. We have a great background account for our members that they can change, you know, pause, skip, change their frequency. So we do have people that do every other month.
This is so exciting. So what is the vision? What is the plan?
You know, so far, everything has been do the things we do and continue to do them as well as we can.
Yeah.
So launching the Health Club this year is really the first innovation, if you will, in 4 years. We haven't really done anything truly new. Maybe a few new releases, but they're still in the same brand world, right? This is the first kind of, we've moved into a health product as opposed to a food product. Even though health and food, it's all nutritious, right?
The need state is kind of different, though. I mean, it's a very different need state.
Exactly.
The use is different, the occasion is different. And we really debated whether to do it at all, because we're not trying to be a health brand. We are a food brand first. But this is what people are asking for, right?
But it came about because we have these customers that are, because we were so transparent from the very beginning, we already had our lab analysis. We were the first brand on Ocado, which has, you know, insane amount of olive oils. We were the first brand on Ocado to put the polyphenols. We were the first one to have it on pack. We didn't do that intentionally to attract this crew. It was more from a transparency perspective.
And they went and they found you because that's what they were looking for. They're called your lead users.
Yes, and we would find them and hear about them talking about us in things like Zoe's community and other health communities were telling us that, oh, people are tagging you in Reddit forums or different channels around health and nutrition. And we were like, huh. So they have found the information we've just given them. We haven't pushed this. If you look at our beautiful wine bottles, they certainly don't scream health. So they have found us. And instead of going to some people that do sell medicinal olive oils, they've come to us because we're showing that transparency and the lab analysis and the certifications to back it up. And so that just meant, okay, they want it. Let's give them what they've asked for.
See, this is where, people talk about social listening being important. And I think a lot of people are thinking social listening is just, is our brand being mentioned and has an influencer mentioned it? But what everyone should be doing is listening to how people are using the product instead of what. What are they doing it instead of? What job are they renting your product to do? Now you guys are innovating.
Totally. I remember getting a voice note, and we've had this, a lot of customers, they ask us very detailed health questions to the point that we have to outsource it to nutritionists and, actual professionals, because they'll leave us a voice note like, so I'm trying to compare, with my omegas, and is this, or should I take a vitamin E supplement? So they're really comparing us, this segment, not all of our customers, but this segment are really comparing us in that supplement space. So that made it really apparent for us that we should release something because they're already doing it on their behalf. So let's just make sure that's more obvious for them.
It's amazing.
And when I think about the future of kind of the pipeline of things we want to do, it's going to be a really boring answer, but there's not a lot in it.
Okay.
We're not trying to expand out to all different types of oils, avocado, coconut, rapeseed. Like, we're not trying to do balsamic vinegar. We do what we do, and we do it as best as anyone has ever done it in the UK. And so we're going to continue to try and be the best tasting, the most nutritious, the most sustainable brand. If we keep drilling those things and keep doing those things, well, those things are working, and the club is working. We're growing. Last year we more than doubled the size of the club, and this year we hope we can double it again. And that is because the reviews are fantastic. The community is loyal. They are engaged, and we represent good value at £15 a month delivered to what they would buy or what they're used to buying in the supermarket.
It kind of reminds me almost like the Ancient and Brave business, the supplements business, and the whole community they've curated around that, or that has come naturally, but then they have kind of gathered up and held and nurtured. Or I spoke to a fabulous brand in Ireland called Sisterly. They've built a fabulous community-based business as well. It's a nutritional supplement, but it's very much around lifestyle. One of the things that comes to mind when you guys are talking is, first of all, it's wonderful to hear such focus, such single-minded focus. The thing that comes to mind is something that Seth Godin, that wonderful marketeer, taught me through doing his courses and getting his emails every day is, people like us do things like this. You look at who are the people like us or people like them. Yeah, so your people like them are the people who really care about sustainability and transparency and maybe health and having really good quality nutritions or food or moments in certain parts of their day or how their pantry looks. What else do they do? And where do we find them? People like those do things like that. They are often, those people who do things like that are often the best salespeople because they're surrounded by other people like those who do things like that. And I think that's wonderful. See, like, how do we find more people like those who do things like that? I'm always banging on to Mighty Slice, Better Nature, all the brands that I work with on the mini MBA, saying, where are your people like those who do things like that? Go find more of them, because if you find one, there's going to be more. And the other thing, actually, and I'm more saying this not for you guys, obviously, but for the listeners, linking up, making a red thread between all the things I bang on about it on all the other podcasts and in any of my programs. The red thread to that is Category Pirates. A super of one is a super of nine. So I had Eddie Yoon of Category Pirates on, and Category Pirates have done econometric research to show that if you are a super consumer of one category, you're a super consumer of 9 other categories. So I imagine you guys would be able to identify what are the 9 other categories that your consumers are super consumers. I bet you dark chocolate, craft dark chocolate is up there.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time, even when we're looking at product collabs. Actually, we just did a product collab test with Land Chocolate on just that. And it's been something that's sold really well on our basket as like an add to cart feature. So I sit in our weekly marketing meeting addressing just this, like,
right.
Who are these other communities? What are they? We know wine is actually, if you're really into the terroir of wine and exploring these different regions, those people that want to go to a vineyard, actually, they also want to go to an olive harvest. And so we've started to extend that to members of our community. And we've actually had some of our members now go out and visit our producers. So yeah, like tapping into this travel lifestyle, the person that likes this like eco-local kind of travel, but on a still quite affluent like experience, people who like to dine at these sort of restaurants, people who are going to this sort of retreat, exactly to your point.
They've probably bought Isle of Man sea salt. because that's a UNESCO sea salt that we have here on the Isle of Man that also sells in Selfridges, giving it a big plug. You can buy me a coffee, Helen. Identifying those 9 other categories, and they can be not food and bev, right, categories. I mean, maybe they've got a particular type of vegan leather bag, or what would be weird and wonderful non-food categories. I mean, maybe they practice yoga or Pilates. What else? Tell us what else they are, because I'm trying to use this as a case study for those people listening, so they can think about their own brands.
Yeah, we've looked a lot at so like eco cleaning, but like something like a Purdy and Fig. If you're a Purdy and Fig customer, you're already looking at
Beautification.
healthy cleaning and beautification of another staple at home.
Amazing.
We see it with things like suitcase brands, like this kind of crossover of like you're an affluent traveler and you're taking like care and like the craftsmanship of how something like that is made. Trying to think of some of our other partnerships or kind of conversation. Even something like patch plants. We've done a lovely collab where they did an olive tree in the bottle. People that want nature in their homes and are into gardening, like this is a really lovely crossover for us as well.
And I think we also found that our demographic is a lot different than we thought it was going to be.
Okay.
We didn't expect that a third of our customers would be probably 60 or 65 plus, which that was only born out of surveys and research that we did speaking to customers.
Why didn't you expect that?
Because we're not 65 plus, right?
That's the answer I wanted.
Yeah, we end up marketing to people who are like us, right? I think of one example. There was one kind of natural wine shop that we loved. We had friends who own it. We really tried to market hard to their customer base. We did competitions, we did samples, we did all kinds of marketing, in-source. It didn't move the dial at all. I mean, it just was not selling even in cases, let alone bottles. And actually, when we have done all these surveys, the 65 plus are extremely loyal. They find something that they like, they will not change. They are not price sensitive. They will pay for the things that they think are really worth paying for in quality.
They've time to cook.
Time to cook, of course. And they're very generous with their time and telling us and excited to get on the phone with us and talk to us for a half hour about what they're doing with it, how they use it, who they're telling about it, what other things they do.
Have you heard this from any of them, which is something that I have heard a lot in focus groups over the years, but also just by talking to shoppers at till, because my kids hate it, but I talk to shoppers who are in front of me at the till. And they look at me. I was having this conversation actually with someone on a podcast recently. Or no, it was at the Cross de Malika dinner or do last week. They look at me when they see me look at someone at the till in front of me and they go, no, don't do it. They often say women who might be over 65 will say to me, I'll say, well, do you mind me asking why you've bought that? And they say, my husband doesn't know, but I'm trying to reduce the amount of meat he gets. My husband doesn't know, but I'm trying to give him better fats because he's got high cholesterol or he's borderline diabetes or whatever. Or, and so they're kind of managing somebody else's diet on the sly, which I think is an interesting one as well for that particular group.
That is an interesting one. We haven't heard that as much as I often talk about this, like whenever women enter menopause, about that same time is when men's heart starts to have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And so they're both going through quite significant changes in their health. And that audience is really interesting because they are actively searching for things and they are making, like to your point, adjustments based on that as like a unit, as a couple. And so they're even the ones that sometimes come to these events. But what I really like is we have these two generations of people who are, and they sometimes come to our events and they're certainly members, they gift each other. It's either their kids in their, around 30 have gifted it to their parents, or the parents have gifted their kids. And now we have these doubles. So we even had, I remember at our early harvest tasting, this mother had come with her 2 adult children. She lives just outside of London. She's just retired outside of London. Her 2 adult children who live in London. And this is like a shared experience that they're all kind of interested in. And so that's been like a really lovely delight because it does speak to, and that I think we do get some younger customers because people want to gift their kids, something nice for their first home, or they just got married, or they just started to couple
really
off.
Nice.
Then people also think, oh, this is a great gift for my parents because they're not drinking as much anymore and they're concerned about their health and they're staying in and eating at home more. So we get both of those audiences, which is, a lovely, those turning points in people's lives.
So no conversation about scaling is a proper conversation if we don't talk about people and team, because, they do so much work, so much passion, so much heavy lifting. So who have you got in which roles? And I imagine you've been doing a lot of recruitment in the last year to keep up with growth. How are you managing that?
The bulk of it has happened this past year. So we kind of market by harvest years. We really run the business as along with our farmers to the harvest cycle. And this past harvest, we took 12 people on our harvest trip, and the year before there was like 4. So
we
it's
do an
quite
annual harvest trip with our whole team.
yeah, an annual
to a
harvest
different
trip.
grove.
That is lovely.
Yeah, to a different grove. Obviously, Michael and I are out with our producers all the time, but it's a nice point to bring the team out to really meet the people, so everyone is very comfortable in how an artisan oil is made versus, the bulk of the commodity oils, really understanding that differentiation. This year was substantial because it was such a big group and they were all new, which is a really interesting thing to have built this team and take them all out and be like, you don't know anything about olive oil yet, and you're going to learn it like today on the groves.
That's great. Where is the heavy lifting? Is it supply chain or marketing or D2C growth?
It's mostly marketing. We've really hired ahead of the curve on marketing. We're between content, brand, and just really making sure that we have a full funnel engine there when it comes to the marketing team, because that really does drive a lot of the D2C side of the business as well.
Yeah. If we weren't a D2C business, we could get by with probably just like a marketing manager, a kind of a catch-all, which is how we started it. And then we realized, oh my gosh, okay, if you're going to be D2C, and then once you start doing advertising, you really need someone that's like just doing that, and who's designing that, and who's making that content, and who's shooting that. So that as we've grown and scaled on the advertising side, it's meant building a brand team that's quite strong and agile and can crank out the content necessary.
In-house designer,
also-
in-house content creator, in-house brand manager. Yeah, all of these.
Yeah, that's
our
an
kind of
in-house
creative team.
CRM. We also have a customer service person because of how big our membership pool has grown. So we have someone who just really does customer service and sometimes like member events. So we do monthly tastings with our members. So that person is there. And then I would say, because of the way we source, which is what sets us apart from probably, I would love to meet another food business in your network that operates the same way that we do, because, we are fortunate to be in a lovely co-working space with the Bold Bean crew and Sunny and Luna and all these wonderful businesses that we really love. But because we source directly from small producers, it is a lot of management and a lot of paperwork and admin. We're not going to just a middle supplier or a manufacturer that can kind of handle all that for us. We are having to get small scale producers up to scratch to even pass audits. And so as a result, we've just brought on a supply chain manager, and there's been a lot on the operations side that I don't think we were expecting how difficult it would be.
Are you able to automate any part of it at all with AI?
We're looking at it.
We're just starting
that
that.
How are you going about looking at it out of interest?
Well, there's certain things like document repositories and stage gates that need to happen. We can certainly automate some of that.
Sorry, I have to give a plug here. There's a business called Foodflou, FOODFLOU, and they've just launched, and they do all of that for quality assurance and all the stage gating and everything. And it's like really reasonable per month. Anyway, just thought I'd say that.
No, great. I mean, we're just at the very beginning stage of that. We've started to build a couple things in-house. We've got a sales dashboard, a cash flow forecast, and a thing to measure the performance of our fulfillment.
Yeah.
We built those apps in-house.
Are you guys on our AI group on the next gen?
I'm on the AI group. Yes, I'm there. In fact, we're just starting to automate some of these things. I'd say where we're lightest is actually sales. We've got one salesperson and one fractional person supporting a grocery for 2 days a week. That's the sales team for B2B.
Brand does a lot of heavy lifting, so that's something, we're going to have to shift.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure you put in another senior salesperson, you'd make their salary back 5 to 10 times very quickly if they were choosing the right bets and placing the chips on the right bets.
Between Sarah and I'd say our roles and responsibility are largely split between Sarah's very front of house, managing all of the farmers, managing all the marketing, and certainly sustainability.
That is a lot.
And I kind of run back of house, commercial, finance, legal, etc. So we kind of largely divide between those two.
And are you guys a husband and wife team?
We are very much husband and wife, and have been for the entire time we've run the business. I would say it is maybe not as hard as I thought it would be. And I think that's because we really do trust each other to stay in each other's lanes. If it comes to marketing, I trust Sarah's going to do a much better job than I ever would. And if it comes to operations, she knows it's under control. I'd say there are a couple of things we've said as kind of ground rules that have made it really helpful between the two of us. And the kind of golden rule is if one of us feels strongly about something and the other just has an opinion, feels strongly wins.
Okay.
We can both veto the other person. There have been so many times where I've been on the fence of something and Sarah goes, well, actually, I've got conviction about this. I will always defer to her conviction, and likewise, she'll do it for me. I think that has probably avoided 98% of potential arguments because it's where we both feel very strongly in complete opposite directions.
Okay, nice. That's a great a great tip. Sarah, what's it like working with your husband?
When I met Michael, he met me and started his first business at the same time. Like he met us actually both at the same conference. He started when he went into the drinks world. So I've only ever known him as an entrepreneur. I met him and he was doing his MBA, and I knew there were no weekends, free weekends. There were no holidays that you don't take a laptop. Like this is just the world of an entrepreneur. So I think that expectation was already like it was a part of our life. So me stepping into this world didn't really change that. I'd also say we really early on we hired our head of ops who's still with us, Natalie Williams, and she is amazing. And we really do see her kind of as like the third leg of our stool. So she thinks completely differently than us. She's very operational, very finance, very analytical focused. And so we're able to bring her into a lot of the decision making. And she's someone that we both immensely trust. And so we can always use her as like a kind of almost like a third founder.
Okay. That's amazing. Well, look, I am absolutely delighted to know more about Citizens of Soil and to have tasted your high polyphenol oil. It's changed my life. Oh, just one question, actually. I haven't really ever dove into, is that even a word, into olive oil and health other than to know it's supposed to be really good for heart and joints. But is it really so if I'm someone, I'm not able to take HRT because of my breast cancer history.
Mm-hmm.
It's really horrible waking up in the morning and your creaky bones. The difference between being 47 and 50 is mental in terms of creakiness and cracking. Does olive oil actually help? Does high polyphenol olive oil actually help? And should I be taking it?
Any extra virgin olive oil is going to have, any decent extra virgin olive oil that's fresh, again, know that when it was harvested, is going to have these anti-inflammatory effects, but certain ones have higher levels because of specific polyphenols. For example, the one you want to look out for is oleocanthal. And so the oils that we've harvested for the Health Club have really high levels of oleocanthal. And oleocanthal, if you look into it, is a fascinating story about a doctor from the US who was in a conference in Italy, and he tried an olive oil on its own. It had a really peppery, bitter punch on the back of his throat. And it reminded him of these clinical trials he was doing around liquid ibuprofen. He took the olive oil back to the lab and started researching and realized that this had the same components as ibuprofen. So oleocanthal is like this natural, I tell people, if you have a headache, you can't take a shot of olive oil and have it go away, but it's a low dose natural anti-inflammatory without the other side effects that's going throughout your day. So if you're having this throughout your meal times, it is something that's giving you, really breaking down. I mean, you can kind of look into the science behind how it specifically works from an anti-inflammatory perspective, but we have a lot of customers actually who do talk about joint pain in their reviews. If you look at our customer reviews on the site, you can actually just do a search for people talking about joints and inflammation and see some of the people's responses to using just, again, any of our extra virgin olive oils, but if you're targeting certain things, oleocanthal is quite magical, as is hydroxyterosol, which is another incredibly well-researched. I mean, we're talking about like 2 or 3 decades worth of research around these and multiple clinical trials.
This is great. Okay, I'm signing myself up. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and well done for everything you've achieved. I mean, this is going to go astronomically stratospheric. I hope it does. I hope you've got enough olive groves. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to sharing this with all of our listeners. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Fiona.
Appreciate it.
Someone said to me recently that Citizens of Soil was one of the most exciting brands out there at the moment. And I have to say, understanding what Sarah and Michael have created, especially around this olive oil club and how the difference between just calling something a subscription and inviting people to be part of a club makes such a difference, has just opened my mind up to how big, global this brand, this company could be. And that's really exciting. So one to watch, one to follow. If you want to link up with the brand, follow them on Instagram, follow their stories. All of the links will be in the show notes below. And as always, if you got anything out of this episode, if it's taught you anything, if it's made you think about your business differently, then please do like and follow the show. Click subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Share this episode with a fellow founder or a colleague, and even leave us a review. It really does make a huge difference to our ratings, our rankings, our sponsorship, and our ability to bring you even bigger and better guests. Thank you so much.